Very good morning to all of you, dear students. Today the topic of my concern is Article 15 of the Constitution, that is a very strong tool towards the upliftment of marginalized sections of the society. So, Article 15, it belongs to the species of fundamental rights which are mentioned under Part 3 of our Constitution, that is both justiciable as well as enforceable. So, as in the previous lecture also when we were discussing on Article 14 of the Constitution, Article 14 that talks of equality in general sense, Article 15 talks of equality in the specific sense. It is the specific application of equality laws. So, dear students, Article 15 it belongs to the fraternity of the equality articles, because in our Constitution it is not only Article 14 or it is not only Article 15. There are 5 articles on equality. The reason is that our Constitution makers, they were very well aware of the spread of the social and the economic disparities in our country, and these disparities, they were backed, they were sanctioned by the social orthodoxies and the religious orthodoxies. So they knew that only a single article or inequality, it will never solve the purpose. That's why they provided 5 articles. Article 14 that talks of equality in generic terms, in the philosophical terms. Then it lays down the fundamental principles of the equality. Then Article 15 to 18, these are the articles which talk of equality in specific terms. So dear students, Article 15 that talks of equality in the specific terms, it is a very comprehensive, it is a precise article that protects the women rights, that protects the children rights, it talks of the children concern. Then at the same time it is a very strong shield towards the upliftment of marginalized sections of the society. How? Because Article 15 provides the express prohibition, express provisions on absolute prohibition of discrimination with the citizens on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex and place of birth or any of them. So, the prohibitory lines are very well explained. It provides that state is duty bound, that whenever to enact the laws, whenever to execute the laws, so discrimination should not be there. And what are the grounds? They are also expressly mentioned. Therefore, a legislative enactment which once comes within the prohibitory lines of Article 15 Clause 1, it can never be validated by its recourse to Article 14 by applying the principles of reasonableness. So, if we read Article 14 and Article 15 together, what it says? It never says that state is not capable to make different laws for different circumstanced people. In fact, it is the requirement of equality under Article 14. What 14 and 15 says? They says that unequal laws are only and only objectionable if they are not reasonable, if they are the result of arbitrary exercise of power at the part of the state by the legislature, maybe by the executive branch, then only it is objectionable and there is no justification, there is no reason for doing so. And if the prohibited lines, the discriminations which are expressly mentioned to be prohibited under Article 15, if they are featured in that classification, yes, really it is violation both of Article 14 as well as Article 15 of the Constitution. Now, let us begin with Article 15 Clause 1. Article 15 Clause 1 provides that state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. So, If we look at the very bare language of Article 15, Clause 1, what it says? It says that state is duty bound. State is duty bound not to make such sort of laws which makes the discriminations. On other hand, the state is at the same time, it is the obligation every time upon the state whenever to make the law, take into consideration the basic features of the constitution, take into consideration the principle of equality. What equality actually means? Equality means to treat equals as equal and not to treat equal who are not equal. So to treat equal those people who are circumstanced equally, that is equality. But the people who from their attainment, from their very nature they are not equal, then not to treat them equally. It itself is violation of 14. That's why to advance this philosophical thought of Article 14, Article 15 makes it mandatory for the state that while enacting the laws, state is empowered to make the reasonable classification whenever is required. It must be there when it is required. But at the name of reasonable classification, it may not discriminate the citizens on the express grounds, that is religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them, one or more of these prohibited grounds. So now the question is the term. Each and every word that is used in Article 15 Clause 1, it has its own interpretation. The term against, what the first line in Clause 1 says, it says that state shall not discriminate against. So against here means the selection for unfavorable treatment. Now if we look at discrimination in this sense, it really involves the element of prejudice. So if it is disclosed that this prejudice is related to the prohibited grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, one or more are included and only these are included, then really it is violation of Article 15 Clause 1 as well as violation of Article 14 both. Now let us talk of certain landmark judgments. These are in fact the illustrations and to make the concept more clear what Article 15 Clause 1 says. So one case is Nansukh Das versus State of UP. In this case the election was challenged. So here the legislative enactment was challenged which provided for the election on the basis of separate electorates, and court when go through the very provisions of the act, court struck down it. Court said that the election on the basis of separate electorate for different religious communities is a clear-cut violation of Article 15 Clause 1 because the discrimination is on the grounds of religion, that is prohibited under Article 15 Clause 1. Then another important case, Grecknell versus State. In Grecknell versus State, a law was challenged which put the limitations upon holding and use of property between males and females. If the proprietor is male, then absolute powers were given with regard to holding and use of the enjoying of the property. But if it was the proprietress, then the prohibitions were made. Court said that yes, this is a clear-cut violation of Article 15 Clause 1 where a proprietress cannot hold or enjoy the property. And what is the basis? Basis is the discrimination on the ground of sex only. So it is not tolerable, it is violation of the fundamental rights and struck down it. Then let me tell you another very important case, Sangar Umar Rawal versus State. So in this case, the notification was issued by the state by which certain communities, they were prohibited from movement within the inhabited area. So and it was made mandatory for those communities every day to report to the police station with regard to their movement. Now the court said, what is the base? What is the basis? There was no reasonable basis. When there was no reasonable basis, when it was not a bona fide exercise of power, then it is a clear-cut violation not only of 15 clause 1 because it was discriminating on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste. So it was violative of Article 15, Article 14 and also it was violation of Article 21, right to live with dignity. It was again violation of Article 19 of the Constitution that talks of the right to move. That is also a fundamental right. Every citizen has a right to move within the territory of the country, but subject to the reasonable restrictions. But the notification, it was totally a monarch instructions without any reasonable basis. Court said that yes, it must be struck down, it is unconstitutional, violative of Article 15, clause 1. Then let me tell you another case of state of Rajasthan versus Pratap Singh. In this case, the police notification of 1861, it was challenged. This notification declared certain areas to be the disturbed areas, and also in the notification it was declared that the very inhabitants of that area, they had to pay for the expenses for the additional police that was stationed in that area. Now, but so up to that point it may be justified, reasons were there, but further the notification provided that Muslims and the Harijans, they were totally exempted from the payment. Now the question is, why these two categories? What was a reasonable classification between the Muslims and the Harijans and the other population who were put to the disadvantageous position? So the court held that yes, it is violation of Article 15 clause 1 because the discrimination is on the ground of religion. Discrimination is on the ground of caste and can't be tolerated. It was struck down as unconstitutional. So in one case, Madhya Pradesh High Court, it struck down a local law. This local law put a set of credit debtors in the advantageous position without reasonable base arbitrarily to give benefits to a certain religious community. So court struck down because there was no intelligible differentia. Prima facie it was arbitrary exercise of power. So dear students, Article 15 clause 1 clearly provides that state can make reasonable classification, but the classification should not at all be based upon the prohibited grounds of religion, race, caste, sex and place of birth. If they are so, Article 15 is attracted, and the court on that base held the legislative act or the ordinance or the executive orders of the government to be unconstitutional to protect equality. So that was the very reason in state of Rajasthan versus Pratap Singh. So the question was, it was contended by the petitioner that in fact most of the disturbances were created by the other categories and not by these categories. So court said it is totally hypothetical and it is not expected from the instrumentality of a state to talk without a reasonable base. Is it possible that each and every member of the community, they all are nullified? It will disturb the national unity itself, and it was struck down. So every time the state has to apply its mind whenever a notification is issued, whenever a government order is issued, whether it is related to admissions, whether it is related to the appointments. So the government should be very, very vigilant because the strong regulation is available in the form of Article 15. Various clauses provide different sort of regulations. So these are the very important cases when we talk of Article 15 clause 1. Just like the Nansukh Das case as I have discussed with you people. One of the case in this line is Evacuee Property Ordinance 1949. So this was challenged because in this case the facts were that some of the Muslims, they filed a petition that the ordinance, it made discrimination against their community also. It was the petitioners contended that the law, the ordinance was discriminatory on the ground of religion because the language of the definition of evicu, it mostly covered the Muslims and not the other communities. So who were to be put in the disadvantageous position? They were the Muslims. But when court go through the whole ordinance, the definition of the evicu, court held that this is a very democratic definition. So it may happen that more Muslims may be covered, but it never says that the other people of different religious communities will not be covered. So it is totally hypothetical to think about these things, because it is the very effect which is to be taken into consideration. So here the basis was bona fide and the effect was also bona fide, because court held that even a single non-Muslim will be covered within the definition of evicu. How you can say that it is a discrimination only on the ground of religion? And court said that no, there was no violation, and in Article 15 clause 1 is not iterated. Then D.P. Joshi versus State of Madhya Bharat, a very old but a very relevant case I want to discuss with you people. In D.P. Joshi versus Madhya Bharat, the notification of the government, it was challenged on the ground that this notification has not reasonably classified the population between the two classes, one of the Madhya Bharat candidates and other was the non-Madhya Bharat candidates. So the petitioner contended that the non-Madhya Bharat candidates, they were put to the disadvantageous position by this ordinance, because the capitation fees was held to be provided by non-Madhya Bharat, whereas the Madhya Bharat candidates, they were exempted from that. Now court, when looked upon it, court said that now the classification, it is based upon the residence, and if a person belongs to a particular area not due to the place of birth, because he has migrated and is living in that area, he is the bona fide resident of that area. And on that basis, if a state is providing certain advantages and the advantages have not overwhelmed the whole seats, the reasonableness is with regard to the such reservations or such preferences, then it is well and good. Because what is prohibited in Article 15 clause 1, it is the place of birth and not the residence. So now court, while affirming on that but justifying the place of residence as a reasonable ground, it focused upon Pradeep Jain versus Union of India, because in Pradeep Jain versus Union of India, there the preferences on the basis of residence and preferences on the basis of institution, these two things were challenged. In this case, court said that in the super specialty groups where the higher high expertise and the resources are involved, the maximum of seats will be filled on the basis of merit and not on the basis of quota, and the quota can only be justified up to 50% and not more than that. So there now both in the both cases residence was an issue. In this case, court said that if the same were the circumstances of D.P. Joshi versus Madhya Bharat, it is in tune with Article 14 and 15 clause 1. But here the question was not upon the constitutionality of the residence. The question was upon the ambit. What is the limit of reservation? In this case, it was the wholesale reservation. So court said that we never say that residence cannot be a ground. It may be a ground because it is not prohibited. What is prohibited is reservation if made only on the place of birth. So here the wholesale reservation was there. No seat was left for the merit pool. So court said that it is totally against the integrity and unity of the country, and in the super specialty groups it will not be tolerated. In this case, 70% of the seats were reserved. Court said that 70% of maximum of the 70%, not more that. But then later on, Supreme Court said that yes, the residence may be a reasonable ground, but not more than 50% of the reservation may be made on these grounds, may be residence, may be or any other ground which are not expressly prohibited under Article 15. So, the same view was affirmed in Pradeep Chaudhary versus Union of India. In Pradeep Chaudhary, again the question was that if the court has made a classification, a law is made where the state has made the classification in which one of the prohibited ground is involved and one of the non-prohibited ground is involved, whether it attracts Article 15 clause 1, court said that court has to look into. One single formula cannot be generalized and applied in all the cases. It may happen in one case where one is the prohibited ground and the other ground is reasonable. Then it takes it out of that, because it was not solely the prohibited ground on the basis of which discrimination was made. So the idea was something different. But it may happen that one was the prohibited ground and the other was again not a bona fide ground. The malice, the arbitrariness at the part of state is involved, where the colorable exercise of power is involved. So really the court may struck down. So a single formula cannot be formulated here. So now let us talk of Article 15 Clause 2. Article 15 Clause 2 provides that no citizen shall be discriminated on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them with regard to the access to the hotels, to the shops, to the public restaurants and to the places of public resort. So it provided that no citizen shall on the ground of on these prohibited grounds may be subject to any disability, liability, condition or restriction with regard to their access to the shops, to the places of public entertainment, to public restaurants and hotels. So this is the language of Article 15 Clause 2 Subclause A. Now look at the term shop. The term shop is used in the generic sense. It is the inclusive term. Why it is made inclusive? Why it is to be interpreted in an inclusive way? To expand the scope so that the principle of equality may be realized at the widest front. So the term shop, it includes all the places where the goods are sold at retail or wholesale basis, and the term shop also includes the places where the services are rendered to the customers. So in this sense, the doctor's clinic, the advocate's office, they all are covered under the term shop. So the institutions, educational institutions which are rendering the services, they are also covered in the term shop. So all the services are covered under this term shop, and it makes the regulations of Article 15 the broadest too. So now let us talk of Clause B of Article 15 Clause 2. 15 Clause 2 Clause B provides that no citizen shall be discriminated on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them and be subjected to disability, liability, restriction or condition with regard to access to wells, tanks, bathing ghats and roads, as well as the places of public resort which are maintained wholly or partly by the state. And it further expands. It says that if not maintained by the state, then those places must be dedicated for the use of public in general. So now if we look at this bare language, it provides that Article 15 is attracted if the places are the public places, if the places are maintained wholly or partly by the state, and if not maintained wholly or partly by the state, then it must be dedicated for the general use of the public. Now the terms which are used in clause 2 is well, tanks, bathing ghats, then roads. So these very well come within this interpretation. So it is very clear that if the public wells are there, public tanks are there, public ghats are there, then there is no problem. If discrimination is based on these grounds, if a citizen is subject to any disability or a condition or restriction, or any liabilities are fixed with regard to the use of these places, then really Article 15 clause 2 is attracted and is held unconstitutional. But if the tanks are private, if the wells are private, then it is not attracted. But now again a clause is there. It says that if the wells are private, tanks are private, but the owner, the proprietor of these tanks or the wells has dedicated it for the use of public in general. Again the same effect comes. Again it comes within the purview of Article 15(2) and be declared as unconstitutional. So now let me give you an example of a burial ground. If we look at the burial ground, it appears that it is available to public at large. But if it is maintained fully or partly by the state, yes, it comes within that. But if it is not maintained, then it must be dedicated by the proprietor for the use of public in general, then it comes within the definition. So dear students, Article 15 clause 2, it talks in the generic sense. It is not only the duty of the state to check, and it is not only the state which is to be held liable, even if the discrimination is made by the citizens also, then also it is attracted. Now again a very important word that is used in 15 clause 2, that is with regard to the places of public resort. Now what are the places of public resort? The two interpretations are there. One interpretation says that the places of public resort means for which the public is legally entitled. So what is the meaning of legally entitled? It means either they are wholly maintained or partly maintained. If it is so, it is but obvious that regulations of the state are there. But the broadest interpretation says that not only the legal entitlement, if the place is allowed to public at large and that is habitually used by public, then it is a place of public resort. And this second interpretation is the most appropriate one because it serves the object and tenor of these constitutional provisions and is more capable to fight with the discrimination at the more broader fronts. So this is the definition under Article 15 clause 2, clause A and clause B we have discussed. Now let us discuss of certain landmark judgments. So in a case of State of Bombay versus Bombay Education Society, in this case the government order of the State of Bombay, it was challenged because it made a classification in which the population was divided into the two categories. One was the category of those who belong to the Asiatic descent and have the who are the Anglo-Indians, whose language was English, and the remaining population whose mother tongue was not English, who didn't belong to the Asiatic descent. So the population who were Anglo-Indians or whose mother tongue was English, who belonged to the Asiatic descent, they were only entitled for admission to the English schools and others were put to the disadvantageous position. So government in defense contended that in fact it is the object of the classification, it is very bona fide. It is bona fide because we have thought that by doing so only our national language will be promoted. Otherwise most of the population will go into the English schools, but court said that no. Because it is not only the bona fideness of the object, it is the ultimate consequence which will matter. And the ultimate consequence is that the discrimination has been made, and the discrimination is made solely on the ground of race and the religion, and it can't be tolerated, and it was struck down. So dear students, the word only, now let us talk of the term only. The term only that is used in 15 clause 1 and 15 clause 2, it says that if discrimination made by the state while enacting the laws or while executing the laws, if discrimination is based solely on the grounds which are prohibited under Article 15, then only it is the discrimination. But if when solely the discrimination on the prohibited grounds while the other qualifications are equal, then only it is violative of Article 15 and 14, otherwise not. So, dear students, other very crucial question is how to interpret the term only. So, whether to interpret the term only, we have to look at the basis of the classification, that when the discrimination is only based upon that, what was the basis. So, if the basis is bona fide, so one interpretation says that if the basis is bona fide based on the intelligible differentia, there is a direct nexus between that intelligible differentia and the object that is sought to be achieved. Again, the object is also bona fide, it is reasonable, then really it is not the discrimination. We cannot say that the discrimination is only on these grounds, but if it is not so, then it comes within the ambit of then Article 15 clause 1 and clause 2 both are attractive. But the second interpretation says that it is not only the basis to be bona fide, it may happen that the classification is reasonable, intelligible differentia is there. Prima facie, a layman can imagine that two people are totally differentially circumstanced. Then this intelligible differentia has really direct nexus with the object achieved for which the differentia is made. Object is also reasonable, but the ultimate consequence is not reasonable. So, what is the purpose of the law? The purpose is to give benefits. So, to look at whether for whom the law is made, it is serving the purpose. If the ultimate purpose is that it is creating the discrimination solely on the grounds, only on the grounds which are prohibited under Article 15 clause 1 and clause 2, then surely Article 15 is attractive. So, what is important? It is not the base or the motive or object. What is important? It is the ultimate consequence of that classification upon the citizens of the country. If the consequence is discriminatory only or solely on the prohibited grounds, then really the classification is bad, it is unconstitutional, and the same was approved in the state of Bombay versus Bombay Education Society. So, another important case is of Abdul Aziz versus state of Bombay. So, section 497 of Indian Penal Code that talks of adultery, it was challenged. Now, you people I think know that this provision of Indian Penal Code has been totally repealed. But now, let me talk about this in view of Article 15 clause 2. So, the petitioner said that adultery is an offence where both male and female are involved. Their consent is also involved. So, male is considered as the offender, he is punished, and protection is given to female. It is a clear-cut arbitrary act of the legislature. So, because if the consent is not there, then it will be converted into rape, and if it is not rape, then it is the adultery. Then one culprit is punished and the other is protected. But court said that no, the provisions of adultery, they are not based solely on the ground of sex. There were many other reasons for doing so. Other were the early marriage, the spread of polygamy, so it was justified at that time. But when this case came before the Supreme Court said that no. No doubt Supreme Court reiterated upon, affirmed the judgment of High Court that adultery is not unconstitutional because it is not violation of Article 15 clause 2. It said that is justified because it is protected under Article 15 clause 3 to make special provisions in favor of women. But dear students, you must know that at today in Indian Penal Code adultery has been repealed. Now what is the ground of repeal? Ground is that women is not the property of the male. So what adultery provided? It provided that if the consent of husband was not there, then it is adultery. So if consent was there, whether the woman is to be trafficked, she is a commodity. So So Supreme Court said that it is the most irrational section and it must be declared unconstitutional and must be struck down. So now adultery is no more here. Now let me tell you about another important cases. One is of R.C. Padial versus Union of India. In this case, the question was that whether the Sangh to be whether the Sangh to be provided a special seat in the state legislature, whether it is justified. Petitioner said that it was a clear-cut violation of Article 15 because it was a discrimination based upon the religion. But Supreme Court, while going through this institution, observed that Sangh is not only a pure religious institution. Historically, it is socially as well as politically important. So, Article 15, Clause 1 is not attractive. Clause 2 is also not attractive. So, these are the judgments whenever. So, one principle cannot be generalized in all the cases. Circumstances are different. As we have already discussed that in the case of residence, it was justified in D.P. Joshi's versus State of Madhya Bharat, but not justified in the case of Pradeep Jain versus Union of India. So, Article 15 clause, then another important case is Daniel Latif versus Union of India. Daniel Latif versus Union of India was challenged on the ground that the Muslim Women Protection on Divorce Act was challenged as being the discriminatory one on the ground of sex, but the court said no. Supreme Court said that it is the personal law that is the legitimate basis of making the classification. So, on the basis of personal law, whatever is provided, it cannot be said as the discrimination. It is a reasonable classification. No doubt when we talk of the same at the modern time. So, now Supreme Court itself has said that no doubt we never interfere with regard to the personal laws and the customs of the people, but at the same time it never says that personal laws may take away the fundamental rights of the people. So, a balance is maintained. Then another important case is John Valamotam versus Union of India. In this case, petitioners were the Christian community. They said that the government order, in addition to the government order, section 118 of the Indian Succession Act, it was put to the question mark. The petitioner said that section 118 of the Indian Succession Act, it put the Christian community to the disadvantageous position. Because it is mostly they are affected by that, it put restrictions upon them as a class. They are restricted from the testamentary dispositions. But court said that every time when we interpret whether it is violation of Article 15 or not, we have to interpret it as an individual. So, whatever the rights of non-discrimination provided under Article 15 to the citizens, they are only as an individual and not as a class. So, here what is violated is as a class. So, wrath of clause 1 of Article 15 was not attracted in this case. So, this is whole about Article 15 clause 2. Now, let us talk of Article 15 clause 3. In fact, clause 3 and clause 4 of Article 15, they appear to be the exceptions to clause 1 and clause 2. Because clause 1 and clause 2, they direct the state to not to discriminate. Clause 1 says that state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the prohibited grounds. Clause 2 says that citizens should not be prohibited. Again, it is the duty of the state, the duty of the legislature, duty of the executive, that such discrimination should not be there. But clause 3 and 4, this says the state to make the beneficial legislations, to make special provisions to favor the marginalized sections. Now, let us talk of the very bare language of Article 15 clause 3. Article 15 clause 3 provides that nothing in this article prevents the state from making any special provisions for women and children. So, look at the bare language. It itself empowers the state to make the beneficial legislation, to make the beneficial discrimination in favor of women and children. So if we look at if we read Article 15 clause 1, clause 2 and clause 3. So the overall reading of these clauses, it provides that what is impermissible is discrimination only on the grounds of sex. But and what is permissible? It is the reasonable classification, the beneficial classification in favor of women and children, and it is this tool by which the state has made the beneficial laws for women, for children. You may find whether it is the formal sector, whether it is the informal sector, at present our legislature has made several laws which give certain benefits more to the women as compared to male, but they cannot be considered as discrimination on the ground of sex. It is due to this very clause, that is 15 clause 3, which empowers state to do. But no doubt Article 15 clause 2, it is more or less in the absolute sense. It is inclusive in nature and it welcomes most of the legislations irrespective of the nature which are made for the benefit of the female or for the children. But at the same time, it should not only and only discrimination prima facie should not only and only of the ground of sex. So culpable exercise of the power is to be controlled by the state, subject to the judicial scrutiny. So now let me talk about certain important. So what is the purpose of 15 clause 3? Why such sort of beneficial discrimination is given to the female and to the children? It is to spread equality in the real sense. Now it is Muller versus Argan, a very important case I want to discuss you people, where the righteousness of Article 15(3) was observed by our Supreme Court. Supreme Court said that it is the very nature of women and children which require such special treatment. Female, no doubt, when we say at present they are equally competing with male, but always keep in mind that female has to perform the dual responsibilities. One is to earn money, other is to maintain the children. That is one aspect. Other very important aspect, Supreme Court said that it is that because of her physique, because of her maternal functions, she is put to the disadvantageous position in her survival in the struggle with her survival and with the physical well-being. And the object of Article 15 clause 3 is to preserve the strength and vigor of this race. The excellent judgment, I think, the reasoned decision, really the obiter dicta, no doubt the obiter dicta, but much more than the ratio decidendi. So it was in this case that state governments and the central government made the beneficial legislations as part and partial. Whenever the laws were made, always it was looked into who are the stakeholders. If the females are involved, then yes. What are the beneficial requirements? They must be complied with, just as the maternity leave. Just as when the female is on the leave, the salary is to be given. So these are not the discriminations on the ground of sex. In fact, they are the beneficial legislation in favor of the female to protect the vigor and strength of the female. A very important, a very landmark judgment. So Yusuf Abdul Aziz versus State of Bombay, here also the same was a question. Supreme Court said no doubt the decision of High Court of Bombay was affirmed that yes, it is not unconstitutional, but the ground is not that it is not on the ground of the discrimination based on sex, but court said that the adultery right was preserved under Article 15 clause 3. Then another important case is Paramjeet Singh versus State of Punjab. In this case, a female who won the election of Panch from the scheduled caste seat reserved for women. So she further fought for the election of Sarpanch. So the petitioner challenged her election. She was respondent number 5. The election of her was challenged on the ground that she was not entitled at all for that election, because the election was meant for it was reserved for the scheduled caste. But Supreme Court said that when the term scheduled caste is mentioned, it means both male and female are involved. How you can hypothetical think that only for the reserved category the female may fight? Female may very well fight for both, one thing. And the second, which was the contention from the petitioner, it was that because she fought for the service punch election from the reserved seat for women, she was not entitled, but court said that no. So what is the requirement was only that she belonged to the scheduled caste. She was entitled for that according to their custom, according to their law, and she was very well the member of scheduled caste, so there was no such sort of ineligibility attached to her, and the election was declared to be the constitutional. Then let us talk of section 14 of Hindu Succession Act. It was also challenged as being violative on the ground of sex only, because section 14 converted the limited property of female to the absolute property. But court said that no, it is not the discrimination, it is the beneficial legislation in favor of female, being the marginalized section, being the historically and as well as otherwise weaker section. These are the benefits, so that she may become strong and to compete with the other section of the society, with the other population, that is the counterpart male. Now let me tell you a very important case of state of Andhra Pradesh versus P.B. Vijay Kumar. This case give new dimensions to Article 15 Clause 3 towards preserving the female rights. In this case, court held that when the question is of reservation of seats for the female in the state employment, they very well come within the ambit of 15 Clause 3, notwithstanding that for the same the specific provisions are made under Article 16 of the Constitution. Court said that Article 15 Clause 3, it is broad enough to put within its ambit even the reservation, to put within its ambit the different beneficial legislations irrespective of their nature and irrespective of their ambit. So reservation very well comes within the purview of Article 15 Clause 3, and Article 16 no way comes in between. So what Supreme Court held? Supreme Court held that the requirement is to make a harmonious construction between Article 15 and Article 16, because both are the egalitarian laws. Both are meant towards the upliftment of the weaker sections of the society. So in this case, the three very important causes were there which were upheld in favor of the female by the court. One was to give preferential treatment to female. The preferences of female in the jobs which were better suited to female, and up to 30% of the reservation preferences to the female in the jobs which were equally suited for both male and female, and the direct recruitment of the female for the posts which were reserved for the female both at center and the state level. So very important judgment. That is in this case P. Vijay Kumar. Again in Indira Sahane, popularly known as Mandal Commission case, here also Supreme Court said that female in our country, both historically as well as otherwise, they are the weaker section, and what is the purpose of Article 15 Clause 3 is to make the broadest interpretation, to enhance the scope, so that most of the discriminations may be put to an end, and the beneficials, by the way of beneficial legislation, she may step towards the advancement. But only one thing should be considered: when the question is with regard to the reservation, it may not exceed 50%. So this is not only for female, all other marginalized sections of the society, whether they are socially and educationally backward, whether they are the scheduled caste and scheduled, there also the reservation may not enhance 50%, otherwise very purpose of reservation is defeated. Again, a very important case I want to discuss with you people is Air India Cabin Crew Association versus Jayashree Merchant. So in this case, the agreement was challenged and was held to be unconstitutional. The agreement was between Air India management and the employees of Air India, where the both male and females were the employees. So the agreement was that both the male and the female staff will retire at the same superannuation stage, that was 58 years. But after completion of 50 years, female will be preferred for the ground duties and the male will continue with the flying duties up to their age of superannuation, and the petitioner contended that it was a discrimination. So female was put in a beneficial position. Both are taking the same salaries, but court said that no, it is not covered under 15.2, it is protected under 15.3. So from this judgment it is crystal clear that the ambit, that 15.3 is mentioned in absolute terms. It is broad enough to include all the beneficial legislations irrespective of their nature, irrespective of the different aspects involved in that. If it is really bona fidely meant for the benefit of the women, really the legislature can do, executive can also do so. So these are all the very important cases with regard to Article 15 clause 3. Now let us talk of Article 15 clause 4. So just like clause 3, clause 4 of Article 15, it is also said to be the exception to Article 15 clause 1 and clause 2. Clause 1 and clause 2 says that state shall not discriminate. Clause 4 says that state can make the special laws for the weaker sections of the society. So this was included by, so Article 15 clause 1, it was included by Constitution First Amendment Act 1951, and it was the result of State of Madras versus Champkam Dorai Rajan. So first of all, let us look at what is the language of Article 15 clause 4. It provides that nothing in Article 15 or under clause 2 of Article 29 prevent the state from making any special provisions for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes or for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So this clause was the result of the judgment of the court in State of Madras versus Champkam Dorai Rajan. In this case, State of Madras issued a government order. So the object was very good. The object was bona fide, but the act was not bona fide. Object was the upliftment of the weaker sections, but the ultimate consequence created the discrimination, because Madras government, in order with this object, it make the proportions of the students, the proportion of the students were fixed for different religious communities. Court said that the prima facie it is a very communal order and was struck down. Court said that no doubt directive principles of state policy are also there, no doubt they are not justiciable or enforceable, but they are very important for the framing of the policies by the state. And DPSP under Article 46, they direct the state that every time when the policies are made, when the rules, regulations are made, they must be made with a very caution with regard to the educational and the economic interests of the weaker sections of the society. So it was contended from the, in defense, Madras government said that it was in tune, it was with spirit of the directive principle under Article 46, but the court said that no doubt you have followed DPSP, but it should not be at the cost of the fundamental right. So every time when an enactment is made, the executive order is made, it must be in tune with the directive principles of the, with the fundamental rights of the Constitution. So a law that is in tune with the DPSP, it must be subsidiary to fundamental rights and it should not be against fundamental rights. So to nullify this judgment, the Parliament enacted in the First Amendment Act 1951, Parliament inserted clause 4 to Article 15. Now after that, the state is empowered to make special provisions whenever required for the upliftment of socially and educationally. What is the term used? Socially and educationally backward classes of the society or for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. But dear students, you must always keep in mind that what is provided under clause 4, it is merely the enabling clause and it never dictates state every time to mandatorily insert such provisions when prima facie the good representation is given by those classes. So this is the provision to be applied by the state very cautiously when a particularly marginalized section is not properly represented. When already they are properly represented, then there is no, it is not mandatory every time to give reservation. So in fact clause 4 is a discretionary tool in the hand of state to be very cautiously used whenever required. And when it is required, when that particular section is not given a proper representation, whether it is the case of admission, whether it is any other case of the appointments, selection process. So now another very crucial question is how to determine backwardness. What is the formula for determination of the SO? And second very important is that what is the limit for the reservation? Because clause 4, under the shield of clause 4, state shall not make such laws which put the other population in the disadvantageous position. So dear students, in our constitution there is no definition of backwardness, who are backward class. But article 340 of our constitution, it empowers President of India to constitute national commission, to constitute state commissions in order to look at the social and the educational backwardness of the people, and according to that report only to specify the population into socially and educationally backward, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. But this act of the state is again subject to judicial scrutiny if it is not reasonable. If it is arbitrary, court will look into whether the principles, the intelligible as well as tangible principles are adopted or not, whether it is the arbitrary exercise or the reasonable act of the state. So this is article 15 clause 4. Now after this Mandal Commission case, when clause 4 was inserted, many judgments came supporting clause 4. Then in Indira Sahani case also court said that clause 4, because it has been expressly provided under for our constitution, the purpose is to uplift the weaker sections, and to uplift the weaker sections, if the reservation and quota is required, it may be given, but not only on the basis of caste, it should not be given. So Indira Sahani case also approved upon the upon clause 4, but in Mandal Commission case, it was Supreme Court, it became very rigid that this quota may not be extended to the super specialty groups. So again very important case when we talk of article 15 clause 4, it was a case of Balaji versus State of Madras. In Balaji versus State of Madras, the government order of Madras government was challenged, and the main question was whether the classification of backward into more backward is permissible under article 15 clause 4. So what were the facts of this case? That Madras government provided for the scheme for admission to the state medical and engineering colleges, and in that 28% of the seats they were reserved for the backward classes, 20% were reserved for the more backward classes, and 18% of the seats they were reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So look, the reservation was, it exceeded 50%, the reservation was 68%, and only 32% of the seats were left for the merit pool. Court said that no, within purview of 15 clause 4, the classification of backward into more backward is not permissible. So, and court made it very clear that 15 clause 4 makes it clear that the classes which are to be picked for the special benefits, they must be socially and educationally backward, and not socially or educationally backward. And in determining social and educational backwardness, caste may be one of the rational criteria, may be rational but not be the sole criteria in determining the social and educational backwardness. In this case, court also said that there must be the exclusion of creamy layer out of these socially and educationally backward classes. So court said, if we look at the language of 15.4, it talks of the classes and not of the caste, and caste is not a class. So court condemned that while adjudging the social and educational backwardness, caste may be considered as the only criteria. Then again coming on the reservation issue, in this case court said that when 86% of the seats they are reserved in the technical and the medical institutions and leaving all the other population only for the sake that even if a single candidate of the scheduled tribe is available, it is clearly a fraud upon the constitution. Because article 15(4) what it provides, it empowers the state to make special provisions and not the exclusive provisions. So this is a case of exclusive provision. So what about the remaining population? What about their advancement? So it is totally against the interest of the state. And if in the zeal of advancement of the weaker sections of the society, the other whole population of the developing country, it is put to the state, it is the violation of article 15 and 14 both. So state should be very, very cautious when when this tool of special reservation is used. So this tool of special provision should be used when required, and when used again the state should be very, very cautious that it should not attack upon the overall integrity and unity of the state. The interest of the state should not be violated, because by doing so what will happen? The high caliber, the qualified and the intelligent students will remain away from the highly professional courses. Then what will, how such sort of candidates whose marks are below the average standards, how they will serve? They will not take the benefits of these highly professional educational institutions, and then what will they serve? It is also very clear. So after Balaji versus State of Madras, again a case of State of Andhra Pradesh versus P. Sagar came, where court condemned the practice of deciding upon social and educational backwardness solely based upon the criteria. Here the memorandum was declared unconstitutional of Andhra Pradesh government because the nomenclature was based solely on the caste criteria. Court said that what is protected is the class, and when we talk of the class means that a set of the citizens of the country having the likeliness. Likeliness doesn't mean only caste. Likeliness means the occupation, poverty and the place, the demography, the terrestrial location, many things are there. So not only a caste can be, it may be a rational but cannot never be a sole criteria for it. Then came the case of Trilokinath versus State of Jammu and Kashmir. Again in this case the same happened. Here the reservation was made, 50% of the reservation it was made for Kashmiri Muslims, 10% for the Kashmiri Hindus and 40% for the Jammu Hindus. Court said that this reservation is clear case of discrimination on the ground of religion and can't be tolerated, and the same was struck down. Then came the case of Periya Kurappan versus State of Tamil Nadu. In this case, court for the very first time said that caste may be the sole criteria, but sole never means that once the caste selected for the benefit of social and educational backwardness may remain so, because court said that it may happen that a particular caste is wholly socially and educationally backward. So when caste is to be made the sole criteria, what is required? That the whole caste is socially and educationally backward and not most of. So once a caste is put in the category of socially and educationally backward, policy of government should not be that they will remain backward in perpetuity. Government has to review and to find out up to after every 10 years or whatever is the plan of the government to review whether the category is till now marginalized or whether it has become strong enough to compete with the major sections of the society and no reservation is further required. So Periya Kurappan is a very important case where court said that caste may be, but only when the whole caste is socially and educationally backward, and once declared, not forever. Review is must, exclusion of the creamy layer is must. So Then came a very important case of Indira Nehru Sahne versus Union of India. One is the case of Pradeep Tandon. Before approaching towards Indira Sahne versus Union of India, I want to discuss on Pradeep Tandon versus State of UP, because in this case also the criteria which was challenged, it was that the admissions in the State Medical and Engineering College, the reservation was based upon the geographical location. So government in the defense said that the hilly area, the Uttarakhand area and the rural areas, the people belonging from these areas, they all are socially and educationally backward. But court said that look at the extent of 15(4). What it protects? The intention of constitution is to protect the classes and not to protect the socially and educationally backward geographical locations. But court said, but court upheld the reservation of the Uttarakhand and the hilly area and rejected the reservation for the rural areas because it was not an intelligible classification, because the population, whole population of rural area can't be said to be the marginalized, whole population of urban area can't be said to be the empowered with regard to all the resources. It was not the intelligible differentia, but with regard to the reservation of the hilly areas and of the Uttarakhand, court said that yes, it can be said to be the reason because these are the remotely situated area. Geographical location is very bad. Students they lack the latest technology and the educational facilities there. So if reservation is made for those students, it can very well be sensed and it is in favor and can't be said to be on the basis of geographical location. So it is based upon what? It is a reasonable classification, not on the prohibited grounds, to advance the weaker sections of the society and is protected under 15 clause 4. It is not violation under 15 clause 2, it is protection under 15 clause 4. So then came case of Jayashree versus State of Kerala. So in this case, question was whether the protection of the constitutional provision of 15(4) may be extended to a person who belongs to a religious who belongs to a backward community, but the income of the family exceeds the set level with regard to a certain amount per annum. Court said that what is the word used in 15(4)? Socially and educationally backward. When we talk of social and educational backwardness, caste may be the rational criteria, but there are many other aspects which are to be taken into consideration while determining, and poverty up to a maximum extent leads to social and the educational backwardness. It may be that the caste has aggravated the same, but poverty up to a certain extent. Therefore, court held the notification of the state valid which provided for the income limit, because in this case it was not the income limit, it was the social and educational backwardness that was made the basis of the classification. Now let us talk about the Indira Sahne versus Union of India, popularly known as Mandal Commission case. So in this case, Supreme Court has to adjudge upon the validity of two ordinances passed by the central government. One was passed on 13th August 1990 and other was passed on 23rd of September 1991. Now, first ordinance that was based upon the Mandal Commission report. According to this report, central government issued the memorandum providing reservation of 27% seats for socially and educationally backward classes and provided for the classes in the post and services of the central government. Now, and also provided for the direct recruitment from these socially and educationally backward classes. But before the Supreme Court may proceed towards adjudging the constitutionality of the first ordinance, the second ordinance was issued. Now this ordinance, in addition to the 27% of the seats which were reserved for these classes, provided for the 10% more seats. These 10% more seats were made for the other economically backward classes which were not covered, which were not given a representation by the first memorandum. Now, Supreme Court upheld the memorandum, first memorandum, but rejected the addition of 10% seats. Government in defense contended that the first memorandum is based upon the Mandal Commission report, and Mandal Commission report took caste only as the sole criteria while making such sort of classification of the population. In fact, commission, what happened? Commission, it classified the whole population on the basis of 11 indicators. 11 indicators were involved based on economic, social and the educational criteria, and points were given to them, 22 points were given to them, and all the castes and the classes which scored 50% or more, they were put in the category of socially and educationally backward classes, and they were to be given the benefit of reservation, whether it was admission or otherwise. But court condemned the contention of the central government and made it clear that the class or the classes which are mentioned under 15 clause 4 and 16 clause 4, they never to be interpreted in the Marxist sense. In fact, it is not the object of the constitution to make reservation a perpetuity. Our constitution itself does not give the definition of backward classes, nor a formula is determined by our constitution. Therefore, what is the ultimate object of these provisions is to put whole population and then to apply the very reasonable test to determine whether the sections are socially and educationally backward or not, and in doing so, if the state has followed the formula of first of all taking caste, so it is not bad if the caste is taken to pick the classes, because caste is a very good method of picking the people having certain familiarities, but caste cannot be the sole criteria. So to begin with caste, the proper procedure is then to go to other sections and the communities. So it said that there was nothing wrong because state started with caste, but state never ended with the caste. Court made it clear that caste may be a criteria but cannot be sole criteria, and if the caste is not preferred, even then the classification may be reasonable. So in this case, Supreme Court said that social and educationally backward classes under 15(4) must be put equally to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and for the very first time said, because in Balaji versus State of Madras, court said that the classification of backward into more backward is not permissible, but here court said that yes, it is permissible. The backward classes from socially and educationally backward may be further divided into more backward, but what is very important is to maintain the character and the cohesiveness of the class. The exclusion of creamy layer is must. So it was from this judgment that central and the state government established their national commission, state commissions for the continuous review of the population which is put in the backward, socially and educationally backward class, and to exclude the creamy layer out of that. A very important case which you people must know. Then let me tell you another case. It was a case of principal of Guntur Medical College versus Y. Ramarao. In this case, the question was whether a Christian convert who originally belonged to a scheduled caste, if it is possible that by reconversion to scheduled caste he may get the benefits in the admission. Court said that it is only possible if at the time of his conversion to Christianity he was the member of the scheduled caste or the family was the member of scheduled caste, and on reconversion the society, the members of the society, they admit him as a member of scheduled caste, then it is possible. Then another very important question which came in, Dr. Nilima versus Dean of PG courses of Andhra Pradesh Agricultural University. The question was whether a high class girl marrying to a boy of scheduled tribe may get the benefit of reservation. I think most of you students also think so. In this case, Supreme Court made it clear. So the facts were that the girl belonged to a high class Reddy family and she married to a scheduled tribe boy. So court said that no, The benefit of reservations are only and always by birth. However, the children may get the benefit of the father, because in our country it is the parentage begins with the father and not the wife can get it, because reservation always starts from birth. The advantage is, always keep in mind that the benefits of the reservation, they are by birth only, one thing, and at the same time these benefits are according to the state only, because if the nomenclature of scheduled backward class and socially and educationally backward class, or scheduled and scheduled tribe, you come in that nomenclature in your state and the same nomenclature is in another state, it never means that you will be benefited there also. You will be only benefited in the state of the place of your place of birth and not there, because article 340 makes it clear that in constitution president has to specify the classes as per the state with the recommendations of the governor. So you can only get the benefit of reservation in your state and not in the other state. And the same is with regard to the benefit of reservation which are only by birth and not due to marriage. So again, interesting example is of Mira Kavaria versus state. Here the question before court was that whether a high class girl married to a scheduled caste boy, can she take the benefit of reservation while fighting for the election? Can she fight for the seat reserved for the scheduled caste? Court again said no. Here also this is a restriction. So our constitution is very cautious while framing them. Then the interpretation by the Supreme Court is again very intelligible. So why such sort of provisions are there? Because to make a balance so that these provisions may not be misused or abused. So it should be very clear to you people. Then another very important case is Anil Kumar Gupta versus State of UP. In this case, Supreme Court discussed upon what is the appropriate way of filling the seats. Court said that the most appropriate procedure to be applied while filling the seats for the admission is first of all to fill the quota on the basis of merit. The second step is to fill the quota on the basis of socially and educationally backward classes and scheduled caste and scheduled. The third step must be now to count the students who have been selected in the reserved category and to look at whether the horizontal reservation quota is satisfied or not. If the horizontal quota is satisfied, then no question arises. But if it is not satisfied, then the remaining number of the seats for that seats, the candidates from the social reservation may be accommodated against the social reserved seats and by deleting the corresponding seats from the of the other candidates. Then Preeti Srivastav versus State of Madhya Pradesh. In this case, 5-judge bench declared the rule of the Madhya Pradesh government as unconstitutional and totally against the spirit of Article 15 Clause 4. Supreme Court provided that 15 Clause 4 is the enabling clause. It is not a mandatory clause to be every time blindly applied. In this case, what happened? That the seats were reserved for the socially educationally backward scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but the marks which these candidates got, they were substantially below the standards which were maintained for the general category. Supreme Court said even if these candidates from the 0 marks may be taken, they will not be benefited from the limited high professional seats, because the ultimate object of these limited seats, high professional institutions, is to produce the high caliber trained professionals to serve the society. How is it possible? So court said that no doubt 15(4) empowers the state to make special provisions, but they should not maybe the exclusive provisions, one thing. And when the super specialty groups are there, the only criteria must be to fill the seats by merit. And 15(4) empowers state to make special provisions, but anyway it should not be taken in a exaggerated manner to take away the other population, because the national interests say that the super specialty groups, when they are involved, the very balanced reservation policy should be there. First of all, merit should be preferred, and if the reservation is to be preferred, then in no way it may exceed to 50%. So it was really a very intelligible judgment, giving a more clarity upon what 15 clause 4 provides, what the state has to do whenever such sort of question, whenever the law is to be framed, whether it is the case of admissions, whether it is the case of entrance or entry of the professionals to a particular institution, whether it is governmental, whether it is public sector undertaking. So these are the very important cases. Then now let us talk of Article 15 clause 5. Article 15 clause 5, it is in fact this clause came from the 93rd constitutional amendment of 2006. So what it provides? First of all, let us look at the very bare language. It provides that nothing in this article prevents the state from making any special provisions for any socially and educationally backward caste or scheduled castes and scheduled tribe, insofar it is related to their admission to the educational institutions, including both private, aided and unaided institutions, and only excluding the minority run established and administered educational institutions protected under clause 1 of Article 30. In this clause 5, it is not only the reference to Article 15, because the language makes it clear, it provides that nothing under this article or under sub clause 1 of clause G of 19 will prevent the state. It makes it clear that whatever is the reasonable restrictions under Article 19, they must also be followed. So this clause, it was the result of B.A. Imandar versus State of Maharashtra. In this case, court said that when the case is of the admission of the students to the educational institutions, no way the quota or reservation may come in between, especially when the institutions are unaided, especially they are the private professional institutions, and so the state cannot enforce the quota. So to nullify the effect of this judgment, clause 5 was inserted to Article 15. Then in TMA Pai Foundation versus State of Karnataka also, court also reiterated to its view in Inamdar versus State of Maharashtra. Court said that when we talk of the educational institution, whether it is for the charity purpose, whether it is for the profit purpose, it is an occupation that is protected under Article 19 clause G. So it is really irrational and spontaneously aggravated to take away the autonomy of the private professional educational institutions which are unaided if state compels them to apply the state quota upon them. So court condemned such sort of practice. So this was the reason of coming of it. But again in Bennett Coleman versus Union of India and in State of Gujarat versus Ambika Mill Limited. So what court said? Court said that Article 15 is not contrary to 15.4. So what were the effect of the earlier judgments? They were nullified by these very important two judgments in Bennett Coleman versus Union of India and State of Gujarat versus Ambika Mill Limited. Court said that it's very bad to say that 15.5 is contrary to 4. No. Secondly, court said that it is within the constitutional limits to exclude the minority run institutions under Article 30 out of the purview of 15.5. So 15.5 never applies upon the minority run institutions. Quota can't be enforced upon them. Then in these cases, court approved the adoption of other backward category formulated by the National Commission out of the backward class for the purpose of 16.4 to be adopted in the case of socially and educationally backward classes under Article 15 clause 4. So court provided that they are same under 15.4 and 16.4, and provided that there must be the exclusion of creamy layer, and for that purpose state has to ensure that the commissions must be there and the constant review should be there to exclude the creamy layer, otherwise the very purpose of the reservation will be defeated. But court said that this creamy layer formula should not be applied upon scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So dear students, it should be very clear to you people that this creamy layer formula can't be applied on scheduled caste and scheduled tribe then. But there was another point where the Supreme Court remained silent. It was the applicability of this amendment upon the pure private non-aided educational institutions. Why court remained silent? Court remained silent because not the institution itself has came to challenge. But if we look at logically, court could do so. There was no problem. Court could maintain the constitutionality of Amendment Act with regard to the pure private institutions. Why? Because no doubt, dear students, you must know that no doubt Article 19 forms the basic structure of the Constitution. But at the same time, all the clauses of 19 are not at the same platform, because occupation under Article 19 clause G, in addition to that, it is subject to the reasonable restriction. That reasonable restriction may extend to the absolute prohibition if the state has made its mind to nationalize it or to monopolize it. So the occupation by a single person, by a body, by a corporate may be taken by the state for the national interest. So this is whole about Article 15 clause 5. So dear students, we have studied the Article 15, very comprehensive article. The first two clauses which talks about the duty of the state to make such laws which are not discriminatory, so that to protect equality enshrined under Article 14. Then clause 3 which empowers state to make beneficial laws for the women and for children. Then clause 4 which empowers the state to make laws to upliftment of the socially and educationally backward classes and for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, that is the enabling clause. And then 15.5 which also talks of upliftment of the weaker sections of the society, particularly by giving by making the special provisions by the state in the admission process also. So dear students, but I want to say one thing, that reservation is not the basic feature of the Constitution. So if you look at the Mandal Commission case, it clearly provided that in the super specialty groups quota can't be preferred. But due to the vote bank, it was put to the burial and the 93rd Amendment Act came. That is no doubt it is the reasonable one, but it gives a scope for the colorable exercise of power by the state. One thing. So if you look at our constitution framers, they were never intended to make reservation a perpetuity feature. It is very well understood by articles of the Constitution which provides that reservation for the Anglo-Indians, for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, for the state assemblies, it is only for a limited period, that is for the 10 years. But it was due to the 45th constitutional amendment that our parliament substituted 30 years to 10 years, then further extended 10 years, then further extension by the 76th constitutional amendment. So it is very clear that our parliament politically cannot say no to reservation. Reason only one is there, because the castes are involved in that. But it is really very surprising that after passing of so much decades, whether the purpose of reservation has not been served. So what I think is that the better way is to substitute caste from the caste and to insert only economic backwardness, irrespective of any other method. Caste should not be, it should be only the economic. If a caste is economically backward, then to be given the benefit, otherwise not. But it is really in the interest of the country that reservation should not be made a perpetuity. We must take the serious efforts in that regard, because if the same blind stretch of reservation will continue, what will it lead? It will lead towards making India in perpetuity with on the caste lines, and it will take away the basic feature of the sovereign socialist secular democratic republic. And what it will do? It will inspire the young generation to go more towards the backwardness instead of the forwardness. Thank you and have a good day.